Well, for more on Weinstein's case and its impact on the industry, let's bring in Seth Berenzweig. Seth is a business and corporate attorney. Welcome back to the show.
Great to be back.
So let's start with the state of Weinstein's businesses amid not just this trial, but obviously the newest charges as well.
Right.
Just how costly has this been for his bottom line before the trial even starts?
What's interesting is that although he's paying a lot of legal fees for his attorneys, when you take a look at what's been happening with the estate of the Weinstein Company, which was really his creation and had been operated mainly on the East Coast in New York, he really hasn't paid anything other than directly for his personal attorney's fees. There has been a bankruptcy process that has enveloped the company, and in that bankruptcy process, it's been split into assets and liabilities. The assets of the company, which are really the crown jewels, some of the most precious crown jewels in all of American entertainment, were sold to Lantern Entertainment for $289 million. With respect to the liabilities, which settled dozens of sexual harassment and assault cases, there's a pot of about $47 million to settle those cases. That comes straight from insurance carriers. None of that money comes out of the pocket of Harvey Weinstein.
So let's break some of that down, because that's very interesting. I think a lot of people are wondering if he's actually taking a loss, and apparently at least not...
Not immediately.
And yes, not immediately. As we look at some of the parts of his empire that could potentially get sold off, you mentioned one of the companies. Who's really interested in buying his assets? And is there anything toxic in being one of those companies who then purchases these assets?
Well, the beauty of the bankruptcy process in the United States is that the bankruptcy judge really kind of takes out a surgical scalpel and really cuts a cord between the assets and the liabilities, and then you have what's known as an asset sale. The assets are cut free and clear of liabilities, and it was a very interesting and lucrative deal for Lantern Entertainment to buy these crown jewel assets for about $289 million. That comes free of the liabilities. That gets shoved off to the side, and then that gets resolved through the pot of money that comes through the insurance carriers. So it's somewhat of an elegant process, even though overall it's kind of a mess. But everything runs smoothly through the bankruptcy court, and in this case that's located in the state of Delaware.
Now, I also want to turn to the status of the settlements and the sort of criticism about how these settlement funds are being allocated. Obviously, there's legal fees, and then you have the victims themselves. What are some of the discussions being had? Sure.
So what has happened is that there is a proposed settlement. There was an additional $25 million injection into an overall pot of about $47 million. That's up for approval by the bankruptcy court judge in Delaware. This is subject to a lot of controversy and criticism because under the plan, certain victims are going to be able to obtain the first tranche of about $18.5 million, not to exceed about $500,000 per victim. There's also going to be several million dollars coming from those funds that are going to actually pay off the lawyers for Harvey Weinstein. You can imagine the firestorm that comes about as a result of something like this.
Right.
So there's a lot of controversy, but I think it's also, as some of the victims recognize, this is maybe the last best chance for them to get some kind of substantial recovery, even though there's no money that could ever really properly compensate them for the horrors that they've been put through at the hands of Mr. Weinstein.
Now, we certainly saw, obviously, the rise of Me Too and Time's Up movements as a lot of these very high-profile cases came to the fore. But in terms of reforms to the industry, have we seen any sort of improvement?
I think that we've seen some significant reforms. It's interesting to just think back not much more than just a couple of years ago when Harvey Weinstein was a deeply respected and revered man and one of the most powerful people in Hollywood. And in a profound moment through releases of stories by the New York Times and the New Yorker magazine, there was such profound reverberations that they really shook the very foundation of corporate America. So to answer your question, I think that as a result of that, there have been some very significant systemic changes to the point where it's really been kind of a cultural reckoning through the course and through the heart of corporate America, where companies are realizing that it's a different country now, it's a different culture, it really is a unique cultural moment, and there have been some significant reforms. There's been increased focus on human resource issues and how people are treated in the workplace. And there have been also some serious reverberations and fallouts of people who have really lost their careers as a result of very significant conduct. You look at Matt Lauer in the media and Bill O'Reilly. There's quite a number of people who have felt the reverberations of this. So it's a very deep and profound impact. And it's also a deep and profound impact outside the courthouse in New York. That's really ground zero for protests with regard to sexual harassment. So this is really a very significant and cultural moment throughout the United States.
And we certainly see that around the world as well, as everyone sees this very high-profile trial continue. Always good to have you. Thank you so much. Seth Berenzweig there, business and corporate attorney.